Dear friends, it's indeed a pleasure to welcome you all to this global conference on public finance for inclusive and sustainable development. We know that progress on the Sustainable Development Goals is off track. Since 2019, 3/4 of countries have reported increased carbon emissions and just 1/5 have reduced poverty levels. We all know that public finance is a foundation to accelerate progress on the SDGs, even more so at a time of fiscal distress. 50 countries are expected to spend more than 10% of revenue on debt service this year. International public finance and effective development cooperation are even more critical in filling fiscal gaps at these times. Additional domestic revenues raised through more efficient and effective tax systems are invaluable at these times, and of course at all times. The way in which tax is raised and the way in which public finances is spent are perhaps the most explicit expression of countries' sustainable development priorities. The fundamental question we will be addressing together in the next 2 days is how a country's national sustainable development priorities translated through the public finance management system into positive impacts for people and planet. As we explore these questions, we have a proposition to make as UNDP to all our partners, ministers of planning and finance, tax authorities, parliaments, and civil society. It is our proposition that by bringing national sustainable development priorities into the core of public financial management reform, that we can both accelerate progress towards sustainable development and accelerate public financial management reform in a more impactful way. This is why UNDP and UNICEF are partnering with IMF and OECD to support this conference. By working across the UN development system and international financial institutions, we believe we can be more effective in supporting ministers of finance and our partners across the world. More important to this ambition, though, is the leadership of those of you in the room representing governments, parliaments, and civil society. We have put this conference together to hear from you, to learn from your experience and perspectives in bringing sustainable development in your public finance system. Your experience in relation to budget reforms, sovereign debt instruments and tax reforms, and how bringing the SDG or climate change or social inclusion or gender equality into public finance systems is delivering impacts for people and planet. We at UNDP alone is engaging with 50 countries in supporting these reforms. Together with the IMF, OECD, and UNICEF, we think we can provide countries with better access to knowledge and experience across the globe. And by working together, we can bring you the technical assistance and capacity development that fits your needs. Tell us how we can do this more effectively. On behalf of UNDP, I will be excited to take forward the outcomes of the discussions in the next 2 days with all of you. Good luck with this event and enjoy Istanbul.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to address you today. I will talk about sustainable development with emphasis on low-income developing countries. This is a very important theme. I only regret not being able to be with you in person. The Millennium Development Goals, adopted in 2000, were rewarded with tangible progress. Progress was particularly impressive in the fight against extreme poverty. In 2015, the United Nations adopted the more ambitious and comprehensive Sustainable Development Goals. Given the 2030 timeframe, we are just past midpoint. Progress has been slow and uneven. And more recently, the situation has become more challenging with scarring from COVID-19 and geopolitical headwinds. Policymakers face difficult choices. These trade-offs can be presented as a policy trilemma. The trilemma involves pressures on government spending, political red lines on taxation, and financial stability, which, in turn, presupposes public finance sustainability. Policymakers can opt for 2 out of 3, but it is impossible to achieve all 3 simultaneously. Public spending pressures have increased all around the world as extensive public support in response to COVID-19 ramped up public demands and expectations. Adding it all up, we identify pressures in the range of 7 to 9 percentage points of GDP for both advanced and emerging market economies. As it is clear from the chart, public spending pressures for low-income developing countries are almost twice as large, at about 14 percentage points of GDP per year by 2030. This is about $700 billion US. For these countries, spending pressures are linked to sustainable, inclusive, and resilient development. If any country accommodates these spending pressures while respecting political red lines on taxation, then, in a context of elevated debt and rising debt servicing costs, a chasm opens between spending and revenue, and a spiral of deficits and debt ensues. Financial instability looms large. Fortunately, tax-to-GDP ratios in low-income countries are also generally low. Improving tax capacity is crucial to enable the state to play its full role in development. A vital but often neglected aspect is the role that public finance capacity plays in financial development and financial stability. The fund has argued that a tax-to-GDP ratio of 15% is the minimum to build the financial muscle of the state. Most low-income countries are below the minimum. Moreover, fund estimates suggest a tax potential of about 9 percentage points of GDP above current taxation levels. Even if the tax potential is fully realized, a financing gap will remain. What is to be done? A comprehensive policy approach is necessary. We emphasize 4 elements. First, spend better. In most countries, there is room for more efficient and effective spending. Digital technologies and artificial intelligence offer great promise. Second, back public spending ambitions with stable but elastic tax revenues that will strengthen the role of public liabilities as safe assets and cornerstones of financial development and financial stability. Third, build stronger budgetary institutions and frameworks with special emphasis on fiscal transparency. Fourth and last, remember that fiscal policy is structural policy. A predictable set of rules helps foster a business environment where private finance and investment can be mobilized for development. And I conclude, the global community should also be ready to play its role and to take collective action when necessary. Effective global action is needed to cope with global challenges like human development. Think, for example, about the eradication of poverty and global public goods. Think about preserving the earth as the common house of humanity. I thank you for your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the OECD, I welcome you to this important international conference on strategic budget initiatives and their role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. This is most timely as we approach the halfway mark on the road to 2030, and we are unfortunately not on track to achieving them. Inaction on longer-term policy goals is a profound challenge facing our countries. The Sustainable Development Goals are not unique in that regard. We face the same with public finance goals themselves. The delay to act today for a better future tomorrow will only exacerbate the challenges and also increase the cost of addressing them. Empowering public understanding around policy choices and their implications will be key. In the area of public finances, the OECD is placing a strong emphasis on this. How can we create advocates for fiscal sustainability? How can we improve citizen dialogues on budget issues? How can we fight disinformation and instead increase fiscal literacy? And how can we leverage modern communication tools for those purposes? Achieving longer-term policy goals will require reprioritization and greater targeting of public spending. Our budgets need to reflect the society we live in today. Too often, our budgets reflect old priorities. Difficult choices lie ahead, and new tools are needed to help charter this course. Gender budgeting, an area that I'm especially proud of, the OECD's pioneering role, provides inspiration. Aside from its pivotal role in closing gender gaps, gender budgeting is also a tool for economic growth and improving the public finances. Improving participation by women in the labor market brings a double dividend. Lessons from gender budgeting can help guide us on how the budget can be transformed into a powerful vehicle for progressing complex policy challenges with dividends for inclusive and sustainable development. On climate, for example, through green budgeting. I conclude by extending our thanks to UNDP, UNICEF, and the IMF for their partnership in this important event, and I'm especially grateful for everyone here participating with us. As I wish you all a successful 2 days. Thank you very much.
Really lucky to now have a real live person in the room to provide opening remarks from, it may not feel it, from UNICEF perspective. Please join us on stage, Natalia Winda-Rossi, Director of Social Policy and Social Protection of UNICEF.
Good morning, colleagues. Let me start by thanking our host, the government of Turkey, for hosting us this morning and this week. I'm really excited to be back to this beautiful city and country, so thank you very much. On behalf of UNICEF, really, and our deputy, also Executive Director Omar Abdi, that unfortunately couldn't be here with us, a warm welcome to all of you that is joining us in this very critical discussion. Excited that you're here in person, and also for those colleagues that are joining online, and looking forward to really hearing from all of you the journey that you already are embarking in to making sure that we jointly deliver in our commitment to the SDGs and specifically for children's rights. It's really our pleasure to be co-organizing this event together with UNDP, IMF, the OECD, with whom we share a collective vision on the importance on accelerating progress on SDG financing. As Marco said in his remarks, the gap is huge and continues to increase, and it's even creating much more stress in many of our country colleagues. We are in a very, I think, critical moment. We've all seen that conflicts are flaring. Poverty, and specifically child poverty, continues to be on the rise. We had an unprecedented increase, which we had not seen in many years. Our latest figures in partnership with the World Bank says that we have right now 333 million children living in extreme poverty. That means that 1 in 6 children survive in less than $2.15 less per day. Conflict and the challenging of the climate crisis and their combined effects are not only creating a burden in the economic sectors, but also in social sectors. And more so, we know that many children have been displaced due to weather disaster events in the last years, more so than in the last 20 years. And despite the impact and the overwhelming evidence that we have on the investment case around children and how important it is to continue to invest in social sectors, these are not prioritized, or in many contexts are the first to be cut, particularly when we are in an economic distress context. The timing of this conference, I think, is extremely critical. This is the moment that we really need to urgently revamp and scale up our collective efforts to prioritize reforms across the finance systems and define an acceleration plan. From UNICEF, we are committed to continue to leverage our country presence, our expertise on social sectors and public finance for children, and really support governments across 3 key actions that we hope we can discuss in the next 2 days. First, we've definitely encouraged governments that while we are taking the path towards green transformation, we protect and enhance the quality of social spending in areas such as health, nutrition, education, and social protection, including in fragile contexts. Sustainable development, green economy, green transitions are not going to be realized without investments in social sectors. Second, in today's world, it's important for governments and also for us in the international community to boost investments and to prioritize preparedness, making sure the systems are risk-informed, that are able to resist the impacts of climate and conflict, and they're able to deliver quickly in an anticipated way through their systems. And moreover, it is critical that we do not forget the unique and specific needs of the extreme poor and the most vulnerable. It's important to have overarching reforms, but also very specific and tailored interventions that allow us to address the specific needs of people in the most vulnerable situations. And for UNICEF, we are really proud to continue to work in this area's work, not only at national level, but also enhancing our commitment around subnational financing. And I think together we can ensure that with appropriate finance systems, vulnerable populations are not left behind in our changing world. And third, we know that countries, and I think many of the colleagues that preceded me have very much pointed to that, particularly in low and middle income countries, we're asking governments to do more and better with an existing and constrained fiscal envelope. This means that we, governments, civil society, development partners, as well as the IFIs, we need to work together to help governments to better align financing flows with development priorities from an inclusive and from a sustainable perspective. And this may be through advocating for increased... Sure, okay. Everything okay? Okay. So we need to work together to help governments to align the different priorities. And as I said, through more ODA, more, of course, concessional financing, but also, I think, as our colleague from the IMF pointed out, helping governments to enhance the efficiency, the transparency, and the efficacy of public finance systems, to strengthen tax systems and domestic revenue mobilization, but also to include social systems in our new discussions around climate finance. We see a lot of discussions around it, but unfortunately, social sectors are not still included as one of the key areas that need to have allocated climate financing. And also support the equitable and affordable access to financial markets. And last but not least, working together to make sure that we have enhanced debt management and restructuring. We know that more and more countries are crowding out their investment in social sectors given the repayments around debt. I think we are already working in many of these priorities together, and I really look forward to hearing from all of you of how you've been prioritizing these elements and how we can all continue to work together to scale up this process. UNICEF stands ready to continue to work together alongside our critical partners and really help all of you to realize the world that we're trying to see. Thank you very much.